Not quite the tempo played with Mingus and Max, but Cherokee nevertheless played by Phineas Newborn Jr. We're here with Jamil Nasser, his bassist and lifelong friend, colleague, and we're doing a set of our festival, the Lost Masters Festival on WKCR-FM New York, called The History of Phineas Newborn Jr., or Phineas Newborn Jr., equally correct pronunciations. Jamil Nasser is here. Now, Jamil, you probably put it best that there is no such thing from this juncture on as a strict chronology in Phineas's career. There are periods of full-time activity. There are absences from the scene. There are surprises in the discography, excellent albums that showcase him in new ways. I think of some combo recordings, for instance, he did on the West Coast in the early 60s with Howard McGee and with Teddy Edwards. Then there is a reception for him abroad in the late 50s. He even records in Italy, if I'm not mistaken, his first time over. Am I right in assuming that in the 58-59 period is when he first goes abroad? Do you have any insight on that?
I think he went abroad after he went to the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of his first trips abroad was after he moved out there.
No.
And I was a little out of touch,
right.
During that period.
Another one of these, in fact, the first of these hiatuses.
Yeah, well, that's because nothing was happening for him around New York. This was after he went on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up where Roy Haynes and I ended up hiring him to work Birdland in order to put some money in his pocket.
All right. Now, these are the two more difficult issues to talk about Phineas's career: his problems with the industry and his own emotional problems, which curtailed his ability. And I know that it must be exceedingly difficult for us to address them. Although they are part, of course, of his life story, they do not really explain much about his music except for the fact that there are these absences. Have I dealt with it enough, or should we discuss it further?
No, we should discuss that because a lot of people are still cloudy about what really went down. And because after these things happen, then the rumors hit the street that this happened or that happened or that happened. And the truth of the matter is that give you and I a big problem, we have to work it out. Give genius a little problem, and it's a difficulty for them. Now, you give them a big one, and it's subject to go anyway. Like who knows what eventually might have happened to Bud.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know about Bud's story, but I do know Phineas' story. And the fact that he wanted to change agencies, he wanted to change record companies, he wanted to change a personal manager, because he visualized something else for himself from what they were, proposing.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the proposals were sort of plantation-type proposals,
Right. For instance, Phineas Newborn Jr. emerges with, as I say, an incredible synthesis of Bud Powell's style and Tatum-like technique. He plays with the passion of his hometown and the blues tradition of Memphis. And the records reflect this, and then all of a sudden, I remember, I'm on the outside looking at the inside, but I'm saying, what's going on? Why are we doing this Jamaica show music? And although the Strings album is beautiful, it seems to be almost a packaging concept that doesn't blend perfectly with the artist in question.
Well, the Strings, that was one of the things he wanted to do.
So I'm wrong on that point.
I don't know if it was the writer he would have chosen.
I dig.
You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that was something he wanted to do. On the other hand, he had other ideas about promoting himself,
right.
And another side had other ideas, plus the kind of business deals that they wanted. And he said, no. So I'll change record companies, because they were one unit, like the record agency, the booking agency, and et cetera.
So he wanted to leave RCA Victor, and there wasn't any place that would take him.
Well, this was see what happened. Let me spin back a little bit. When Phineas decided that he wanted to own himself, before this, in this glory of coming into New York and the big fanfare and everything, a lot of things were given to him that he thought were gifts. Like pay the car off. Here's a set of fives. Oh, you need a saxophone. Here's one. And oh, what about this? Here, this will be developing kit. Just a whole array of things. And he was thinking in terms of these are gifts. Until he got ready to make his move. And they said, "Oh no, you owe us the saxophone. You can't go anywhere. You got to stay here. You belong to us, etc." And no, he said, "No, I'll pay you off, pay that off. I'll just make arrangements to pay that off, and I'm going my own way." And when he made that move, everything stopped. Record progress, booking progress, everything stopped. As a matter of fact, Phineas had just married. His wife was pregnant with the first child. Everything was going along fine. He had made his arrangements that he was going to go to this record company, the hat booking agency, the da-da-da-da. And all of a sudden, there's nothing. Not even the agencies that were going to take him. You see, not even the record companies that were going to take him. The whole world stopped. And he had a nervous breakdown. How you going to feed your family? What you going to do? The rent's due. Da-da-da-da-da. This was the squeeze that was put on him. So that was his big problem. He had a nervous breakdown because of that. And Roy Haynes and I ended up trying to put money in his pocket by hiring him to play with us at Birdland. And the first week they garnished every penny that was coming to Phineas. It was after that he couldn't handle it. So the following week, Roy Haynes and I argued so with Birdland that they said, well, he can have it for the next week. We had 3-week engagement there. And he couldn't make it back the next week. He had a nervous breakdown. Then the word went around that his wife had ran him crazy. That was the word on the street, that his wife at that time, Dottie Newborn, had run him crazy. Not true. That was the greatest thing ever happened to him. They were in love. You know what I mean? And he was her king. Phineas couldn't do no wrong with her. You see what I mean? But the word hit the street that she ran him crazy. Not really what happened. What really happened is they put such screws in him that he could not work in this country or overseas. He couldn't even get a gig in a 4th-class club. He couldn't handle that because he'd always been an independent. And he had never been fenced in like that. And so, in other words, what the industry told him is, we own you. If you don't do what we say, when we say, and how we say it, you will not do anything. And this was the cause of those absences. Because even after, the nervous breakdown, doctors have nervous breakdowns, lawyers, you name it. Anybody can have a nervous breakdown. But after that, he sort of withdrew from the business scene. You had to really know what you were doing to get him, to do certain things, because they went thumbs down on him, he went thumbs down too.
Right.
And so if you couldn't penetrate that wall, see, it wasn't Phineas was crazy like a fox. They spread the word that he was crazy, like a fox. He still had that photographic memory.
Right.
People who misused him years ago, it was just like they had misused him an hour ago when he'd see them again. And they'd be thinking, why don't Phineas speak to me?
Right. Phineas
brought the curtain down. Mr. Young could do that very well, too. Just bring that curtain down, and you couldn't penetrate. So that in short,
right,
is what happened to this great genius. And see, genius should be immune from things like that. And unfortunately, that has happened so much in our feel, and it's still happening in some other ways. It's happening in other ways now, scientifically. Like the man on the moon's kind of stuff. But it's still happening. If you speak up and you say no, 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 no good. You know what I mean? There's lists out there that you go on. This guy's hard to deal with. He's a bad fella. He wants the right stuff. You see, so we've had many people like that, G.G. Grice and people like that, who really spoke up, who had their hearts were in doing the right thing for everybody. And they paid the penalty. They paid the penalty for it. Well, it pains me to think about that era that I just talked about because Phineas was very proud. And when they took away his dignity, in other words, we want you hat in hand. We want you come begging, for something. He wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, after he went into, under medical care for the nervous breakdown, his wife at that time was approached to, look, you're pregnant, there's no food in the house, sign over all of his compositions, and we'll see that you eat. And to show you how much she was in his corner, she threw him out. Threw him right out of the house, Because one thing, she had friends, so she didn't have to worry about, starving to death or anything like that. But that...
Was there talk of just going back to Memphis and restarting there?
No, I don't think with any of us there'll ever be any talk of going back to Memphis and restarting there. But it was just a frightening situation, because when I looked at what they could do to him, then I knew I didn't stand a chance. If you can do that to true genius, I don't mean alleged genius, because you got a lot of people out here now calling certain people genius, and they're not genius, they may be good musicians, but not genius, And that was frightening to me that they could do that. Now, speaking of the Ray Brown stuff, on the West Coast, Ray initiated that with Verve and with other companies, because we didn't forget who he was. Howard McGee, he initiated. You see what I mean?
Right.
But it wasn't industry coming saying, Phineas, come, They were a little too embarrassed when one of us would say, hey, man, Phineas, come on. You see? They were a little too embarrassed to say no to a Ray Brown or to a Howard McGee. They said no to me many times, but that didn't bother me. But Phineas was a person who, if he had been left alone, he might have dwarfed Art Tatum. You know what I'm saying? If he'd been left alone to do just what he wanted to do and at the rate that he wanted to do it, and I feel that genius has earned that right. They don't owe us. We owe them.
Right. It's in that sense that we tolerate correct statements but said the wrong way when we speak with these geniuses, I guess. I've seen you do it, and I admire you for it, and maybe that's something I've learned. I know that we both heard Papa Joe going left on us a couple of times, but we knew that he was right.
That's right.
And
well, he didn't decorate it. He would give you the frills. He'd toss you a diamond, but you had to polish it off yourself. You know what I mean? If you didn't realize you had a diamond, that was too bad. Because he wasn't going to come along and polish it up for you. But Phineas was a gentle guy. He was not. He loved everybody.
Did he? Before his breakdown, did he see this as a battle to be fought and won? Did it intensify him?
He was embarrassed by
it. So he didn't see. He really wished it would just go away.
He was very embarrassed by that nervous breakdown. As a matter of fact, when he first went into the hospital somewhere out there on Long Island, Dottie called me up and said he's not talking to anybody.
Right.
And he's saying that you must hate him, So that alarmed me. So I said, well, let's go. So we went out there in a snowstorm. And when I first went in the little reception area where he was, he didn't even look at me. So I knew the psychology.
Would this be 1961 or earlier?
Earlier.
Okay.
Earlier. We're talking about 57, 58, somewhere in there. 58 maybe.
Right.
And so he didn't even look at me. So I said, I know this game he's playing, And I said, well, gee, I better get out of here because maybe you are out of it. And I turned like I was going to leave. Said, wait a minute, don't go anywhere. You know what I mean? And then we had a nice talk. I said, no point in being embarrassed by this. I said, professional people, presidents of the United States have nervous breakdowns. I said, it's a matter of from now on, getting yourself together. I said, use this time to write some music. And that's when he did Pamela and a lot of that stuff, I took him music paper out there. But he was very embarrassed, by the fact that he had a nervous breakdown. And he didn't even want to come out to meet people. And between Dottie and I, we inspired him to get on out and play some more, man. Never mind all this sitting around and like that. So he went on back out in the street and played. I mean, he just played and played. But it didn't mean anything because it was still thumbs down. He was dazzling everybody and golly, wow. But it still didn't mean anything, which sent him deeper, into himself. And as much as we tried to break open that door so that he could walk through again, that door wasn't supposed to be open. And when it's like that, you can't even do anything.
This is probably a difficult assessment for you. We're talking here live with Jamil Nasser. Jamil is the bassist and lifelong friend and colleague of our focus, Phineas Newborn Jr., the Wizard of the Ivories, the young man from Memphis who now we know will never be old. This incredible musician went through two crises of great depth in the late 1950s. A falling out with his management, both in terms of booking and record company, and a resultant nervous breakdown, which was to mar the balance of his lifetime and to create, in two senses, this embarrassment, an apt term. It wasn't a war. He wasn't a warring person. He was embarrassed that he had a war and then embarrassed that he'd gotten sick. And this probably made being his friend, which Jamil remains to this day and forever, difficult, and it also made fixing it more difficult than it might have been under different circumstances. Do you think the continued lack of attention from the music business as time wore on was really the war still going on, or that they shied away from him because of his mental problems as time wore on? I mean, didn't the war go away and then it became more the problem of his supposed craziness, as they said on the street?
Well, let me put it this way.
I know these are hard questions.
I have a way I describe that, see. You have a blacklist, which communists and everybody go on. And you have a white list, which blacks go on. You can get off the blacklist, but the white list is forever, you see. And even though there were little nips and tucks at things, you had to look far and in between the cracks to find something of essence that he could be booked on. You had to look far and hard for that. And that was because of this white list that Lucky Thompson's on. As a matter of fact, Phineas and Lucky Thompson are two of my projects. I lost Phineas, so I can't continue that project. That's why I'm happy that you're doing what you're doing to bring Phineas. This genius shouldn't be buried. It should never be covered up. If you found a Mozart composition now, you could get $20 million for it, if it was something that, hey, but why didn't they appreciate him to that extent when he was there?
Yeah.
So this is very important, what you're doing, and that's why I'm honored to be here, to talk about this because, see, the truth knocks the brains out of falsehood. And so many people have been belaboring under this falsehood that what happened to Phineas is he just snapped. He got a bad woman and no. This was a lamb, man. He
was led into the slaughter.
And just loved everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, he just loved people. He loved to be appreciated. He was a happy man. I mean, just happy with his playing, happy with his life, happy with his wife, happy with his group, just happy man. He was all laughs, looking like a little young Billy Strayhorn. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I used to kid them together when I'd get them together. I said, wait a minute, you mean you guys are not, they had the same kind of heads, So anyway, for that to come down on him in the middle of all this beauty, all he's doing is spreading beauty and enjoying himself and enjoying people, that was a big weight to come down on him. Whereas I could have handled it. We are at fault because we never did let him handle any heavy stuff. We'd leap right in there and, what do you need, Phineas? Don't worry about it. You go ahead. We got it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we spoiled him, and we would spoil him again if we had it to do all over again. But what would have been a small problem for you was a big problem for him. Now, when he got the big one, look out. That fragileness. To have that kind of sensitivity, you have to be fragile.
Right.
You know what I mean? And not only that, you have to love. You have to be a lover to have that kind of sensitivity. You can't be in life without loving. But unfortunately, the love wasn't a two-way street.
Right.
He even loved the people, that he was fighting with. Loved them, But like you say, you got people who don't know what the third chord of body and soul is. Sitting in the seats of decision. And this is bad because, see, with Phineas, we had seen something else. We had seen we had seen the genocide of rhythm and blues. We looked at that. We were right there looking.
Yeah.
This was before the other so-called king was made. They had to eliminate all that stuff because he couldn't get through that competition. He couldn't get through Sonny Thompson and Charles Brown and Joe Liggins and, and Roy Milton and Roy Brown. That's too strong stuff, man. So they had it banned off the radio and out of the record shops for a time. You see? So we saw all that. So when this started happening to him, I'm sure with that photographic mind of his, I guess he said, well, here I am, a banned person.
All right.
And it just was impossible for him to deal with that.
I'd like to do, basically, Jamil Nasser is both a primary witness, therefore giving us strong details. He's also a philosopher, and he has a very, very major focus on one of the most startling of revelations. If you're just tuning in, you know that a very calm and beautiful man, who I hope you also know his music, bassist Jamil Nasser, has just said, hey, look, the business guys, they didn't want the Afro-American tradition of music to be packaged by blacks for blacks and for them to recoup all of the rewards due them for their creation. So they found a way to fix it so that it never worked out in its own best interest. And you may say, well, look, man, that's a pretty heavy charge that Jamil Nasser is laying down. And then the specifics is that he's saying that this lamb, this genius of sensitivity and wizard at the keyboard named Phineas Newborn Jr., got squashed by this conglomerate music industry. And you say, well, look, that's a pretty heavy charge. I'm not going to go into the details because Jamil is the expert on that. But I want to show you that you better be heeding what Jamil is saying, because I got something that parallels this. You heard him say the year 1958. And maybe you don't know Phineas Newborn Jr. because he got squashed. And you're saying, oh, man, I sure hope this really isn't that bad because, oh, man. But think about, you heard Errol Garner? Now, Errol Garner got trapped in the same deal in the same year. Now, you think the guy wrote Misty, who had the hit with Laura, you think that this man was an untouchable. Well, tell me, what major record company recorded Errol Garner after 1958? You answer that question, and then you find out why. I hope you heard Jamil Nasser tell a very sorrowful, tragic story of the demise of another keyboard wonderment in that same year, 58. This time the label was Victor, not Columbia, but the argument was just as intense. And that's why this story is unfortunately a true one. And we've unfortunately had to share it with you because it's part of the history of Phineas Newborn Jr. Boy, I think we better play him some music and then go back to Memphis, Jamil.
Yeah, that's true.
The man I love from the man Jamil Nasser will love forever, Phineas Newborn Jr. in his solo piano recording of the Gershwin ballad, and this from his return to action in the 70s. Jamil Nasser and I are now going to take it back a span of 35 years and change. I have here some records that I don't know a whole lot about. You probably know a lot about them, but have probably never heard them. And I want you to tell me first about what instruments, Jamil, that. By the way, if you just tuned in, I know this has been on for a long time. Maybe you're wondering what. This is the Lost Masters Festival, which in its own right is a tribute to Tad Dameron, Lonnie Johnson, Frankie Newton, and a gentleman we're acknowledging right now, Phineas Newborn Jr. Our Lost Masters Festival contains 4 hours on each artist where we study their life story. We'll do Frankie Newton on Monday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Tad Dameron tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Yesterday was Lonnie Johnson's turn. Right now, the history of Phineas Newborn Jr. is in progress. I felt some sort of spirit grabbed me that said I shouldn't do this alone. And I made the phone call pilgrimage. You know, you can go a long distance with a telephone. That was one of Joe Jones's lessons. I've been all around the world today. I picked up the telephone. And I dialed Jamil Nasser, and he accepted because he probably felt that it had to be done. And it is now being done. The history of Phineas Newborn Jr., not by researchers looking at chicken scratches in books, not that there isn't a purpose to that study, but from someone who was there. And there meant right from the beginning, where Phineas Newborn Jr. was born on December 14th of 1931. I believe he passed away in Memphis, too, didn't he,
Yes,
Jamil?
he did.
May 26th of 89. So we're going back to Memphis, but we're not going to the 80s. We're going, I believe, to the 50s. So my question to Jamil Nasser about Phineas Newborn Jr., the piano wizard, the successor to Tatum, is what other instruments did he play on a, pardon me for saying this, but a New York City level of accuracy and excellence in jazz, that he could have made it if he hadn't played piano on another instrument? Was there another instrument?
Yeah, he could have played trumpet.
on a level commensurate with what you...
Oh, definitely. Saxophone.
Which one did he favor, or did he play them all?
I think he favored the saxophone, but I think he loved the trumpet, too.
Which saxophone in the saxophones did he favor?
He liked the tenor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he loved the tenor. And also vibes. You know, he played the vibes extremely well. And between those three.
My perception as an outsider is that the vibes was his second best instrument. Am I right or am I wrong?
It might have been the tenor.
Tenor, vibes, trumpet. If it was your call, and I know it's a silly thing to get into, but if it was piano, obviously, is first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Tenor saxophone is the instrument that you have a strong recollection of him being that great on.
He wanted to be a great tenor saxophone player. You know, that's why I go to the tenor first.
Mm-hmm.
But now, his vibe playing was excellent.
Yeah.
You know, it was just so natural for him. But he wanted to be a tenor saxophone player when he wasn't on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember on some gigs he used to carry a tenor saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
And one time he carried a tenor and a trumpet, you know, and played a little of both.
Did he ever do this in New York City?
And not on the gig, no.
Oh, okay.
He'd go out and sit in.
Sessions?
Yeah, in sessions. He'd play saxophone. I don't think he ever played trumpet in sessions. He played saxophone in sessions. But he was just, He could have excelled on either one of those instruments, I think. But the piano is the one he devoted the time to. The others, he just picked them up and played them. I don't think he ever practiced them. Because once he knew where the notes were, that was it. The case was closed. He could read on them, anything. Once he knew where the notes on the horns were.
Did he ever play drums?
He thought he could. He would sit behind some drums. He used to tickle me behind the drums.
Sometimes people like me wonder when we see on a blues record drummer Phineas Newborn, whether it's the father or the son. Is it always the father on a blues record?
Yeah, it's always the father. He wouldn't play drums on a record, I don't think.
Okay, well, now having heard all that, I'd like to play you something. I don't know whether you want pen or paper, because if you want to talk while the music's on, I'll flip it so you can. But I want you to tell us what you think this stuff is that we've found. Okay?
Yeah, well, I have to listen to it first. I'd rather not talk during it.
Okay, so if you want to take a note or something, we can jot things down.
I take the note here.
Okay. You got any questions for me before I play it? Just hear it and go.
Let's just hear it and go.
Okay. Jamil Nasser is now going to listen to some rare music from the old days and tell me what he thinks is on these discs, because I need help. This is, everybody says, how do I know what I know? Maybe I don't know anything, but what I know, I let the musicians listen to the music, and then I try to assimilate, be that sponge of absorbing information, because I couldn't have possibly been there.
Well, now, I might not have been there either. You have to remember that, because
I'm going to use your ears, not your memory.
Some of those things
I'm going to use your ears, not your memory.
Okay.
No tears, no fear. Remember, there's always tomorrow. So what if we have to part? We'll be together again. Your kiss, your smile, are memories I'll treasure forever. So try thinking with your heart. We'll be together again. Times when I know you'll be lonesome. Times when I know you'll be sad. Don't let temptation surround you. Don't let the blues make you bad. Someday, we still have a lifetime before us. For parting is not goodbye. We'll be together again. Times when I know you'll be lonesome. Times when I know you'll be sad. Don't let temptation surround you. Don't let the blues make you bad someday. Some way we still have a lifetime before us. For parting is not goodbye. We'll be together again. Now you say you're lonely. You've cried the whole night through. Well, you can cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over you. Now you say you're sorry for being so untrue. Well, you can cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over you. You drove me, nearly drove me out of my head, while you never shed a tear. Remember, I remember all that you said. Told me love was too plebeian. Told me you were through with me. And now you say you love me. Well, just to prove you do, come on and cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over you. Nearly drove me out of my head, while you never shed a tear. Remember, I remember all that you said. Told me love was too plebeian. Told me you were through with me. And now say you love me. Well, just to prove you do, come on and cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over you. day. Every day I have the blues. When you see me worrying, baby, mama, you I hate to lose. Nobody loves me. Nobody seems to care. Nobody loves me. Nobody seems to care. Speaking of hard luck and trouble, I guess you know I've had my share. I'm gonna pack my suitcase, moving on down the line. Yeah, I'm gonna pack my suitcase, moving on down the line. There ain't nobody worrying.
Well, you were listening to the Phineas Newborn Sr.'s band. That was different personnel that passed through there. But on some of the earlier cuts, I think I heard Unzi Horn on vibes, who was a great arranger. He ended up doing a lot of this stuff, Isaac Hayes. You know.
You mean two vibraphonists?
Well, see, that band, you look up and see anybody on anything. You know, it's one of those kind of situations. So you really have to put your ear there to try to figure out now who was that. Because Honeymoon Garner, he was a keyboardist too. And when you heard the organ, you were listening to him.
Right.
And also when sometime if Phineas is playing vibes, he would be either playing organ or piano. Mm-hmm. And it's possible that he could have played vibes.
Right.
Calvin's wife, Wanda, her maiden name was Wanda Jones. This was before they got married, I think. You would hear her on trombone as well as vocal. Mm-hmm. And she could tinkle on the piano a little bit, I think. And you might hear Calvin on flute or trombone or guitar. See, it was that kind of band. And when you looked up, it wasn't necessarily this guy you saw playing on the last instrument. So that's why it's kind of hard for me to unscramble it, but I thought I heard also Bill Ford, who was a saxophone player around Memphis, taking one of those solos. And I thought I might have heard Phineas playing tenor on something too.
Yeah, now I don't know this from Adam, except that I do know timbre a little bit. It sounded to me like I heard two different tenor players on this broadcast.
Well, you know, that's like I say, it was a rotation. You could have heard, it was an act. Let me put it that way.
Which one do you think would have been Phineas Jr. on the tenors?
Oh, that was early. Early on the other side, I might have heard Phineas.
You mean like the opening number?
No, not the
opening.
opening.
No, it wasn't the opening. There wasn't no tenor on that. He was on
down in there somewhere. I didn't make
the blues. The blues that preceded "Cry Me a River." That's the one you thought was Bill Ford, or the one you thought was Phineas?
That could have been.
The one we mentioned George Coleman while we were listening to it.
No, that one I couldn't identify that one.
So okay,
I couldn't identify that solo. I don't know who that could have been because you see, I was in college, so I would come in town and whatever band was that would be the band I see. Which one this was? Mm-hmm. Because sometime when they would do something like this, they'd have guys sitting around the audience too, like maybe an Unzi Horn who wrote the arrangement, and then he might come up and play vibes on one of the arrangements that he wrote. You see, so it's really. I wish I had Phineas here to unscramble it because, he was there. And his
do you think Calvin would
Calvin would know.
Okay. Maybe
Calvin would know.
Calvin's coming into town, you know.
Yeah, I heard. I heard. Yeah, you should get him down here.
Yeah, well, we're praying we're going to do that. I'd love to do that. Mm-hmm.
Tell him I said you don't hesitate.
All right.
Because now he would know, he could give you all the lowdown on that exacts. He could give you exacts, see.
Okay, well, I'll try to... We just played a rare radio broadcast. It sounds like it might not be in the theater, but it is a studio radio program in poor sound shape, and it's obviously a reference lacquer. For some reason, it has been dubbed off a couple of times. And it features the father's band, Phineas. It's funny, you got to say Phineas Newborn Sr., but you say Phineas Newborn Jr. You're probably better off just sticking with Phineas. Well, they are the finest.
Well, see, they used to pronounce it almost like with U.S., finest.
Yeah, finest.
That's, it was almost like you begin with an F.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's definitely
with a
beginning with
U.S., finest.
Finest Newborn.
And when they changed it to Phineas here in New York, and he liked that, that's all I called him after that. But the old man was Old Man Finest.
Right. So the Finest Newborn Sr. Orchestra on a radio show in Memphis. That theme, was that their theme or the radio show's theme it played before the first number?
Oh, they had their own theme.
And do you remember that at all? Did you play in this band?
Oh, just spots,
Mm-hmm.
Every now and then I'd play a couple of nights with them or something.
Uh-huh.
But I was kind of busy with a lot of other things during that time.
Then the first number, you have no idea what the tune was, but it was Phineas Newborn Jr. on Vibes.
I think that was Phineas on Vibes.
Yeah.
But now to be sure, you better get Calvin.
Oh, I heard you.
Because, see, he's familiar with that rotation.
Yeah, I know, but I'm going to get...
in one tune, you might hear
you remember with
two different vibe players.
You remember Finest with the piano teachers?
That's right.
Well, I'm starting with you. Okay, so the first tune, the vibe, it's okay. Then We'll Be Together Again. The pianist leaves and the organ player plays, but I didn't hear piano and vibes on the first tune, so I'm going to assume that on We'll Be Together Again it was Finest on vibes and the other keyboard player on organ, and that was Wanda Jones on vocal. Then there was sort of a calypso / Latin
I know
number.
that was a Phineas arrangement.
Okay, Phineas Newborn Jr., piano and arrangement, probably untitled at this time. Then Mood Indigo, we get the organ vibes combo deal again, and
with everybody singing.
Everybody's singing, yeah.
Everybody sang in that band.
Right.
And I'm sure that was Phineas in the background on piano on that.
And then there was a jump blues number that showcased Calvin Newborn's guitar. You can still recognize that that's Calvin from his records. I mean, the early... are you agreeing with that I did right? Was that Calvin on that?
No, it's only going to be Calvin on that.
He's the only guy who plays guitar.
Only one.
So I would have been right anyway, even if I was... dumb, I would get it, but I'm also lucky and dumb.
Yeah, well, you calca brain,
So, and then the Crimea River, that was Wanda Jones vocalizing again. Then there was a blues. Don't Want to Hurry was it's kind of hard to say what the title is. It's one of the two key phrases in the vocal number. Then Moody's Mood for Love with Calvin Newborn and Wanda Jones, soon to be Wanda Newborn, singing as the same King Pleasure, Blossom Dearie duo.
And I'm sure that was Phineas on Vibes on there.
Okay, and definite Phineas Newborn Jr. on Vibes on Moody's Mood for Love. And then Every Day I Have the Blues.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was...
Calvin singing again, right?
That's Calvin singing and...
Phineas Newborn Jr. on piano.
Yeah, he's back there in the background on piano. I know that. And whoever the other members of the band is, because at any given time, it could have been different personnel. And if the saxophone players weren't totally identifiable, it could have been a number of a whole dozen of different guys, playing with the band at that time.
So there are two saxophonists in the band, and there are people capable of joining the reed section in the Newborn family.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So the instrumentation, if I got this straight, you have a vibraphonist who's doubling. You have a keyboard player who's not Phineas Newborn Jr. and is a man named Onzie
Horn.
Onzie Horn.
He would. I heard one of his arrangements, and it sounded like him on Vibes.
Okay.
Also.
Would that been the first tune?
Near the first tune.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then you have Wanda Jones, later Wanda Newborn, marrying Calvin, the brother and guitarist. She sang all the female vocals you heard.
That's
and
right.
Played trombone.
That's right.
The trumpet player was Bowlegs Miller.
Yeah.
And you didn't hear any doubling up in that section. Other
than singing, he would have been one of the singers.
And and Phineas Newborn Jr. didn't play trumpet to flesh out the section at any point because he was busy enough as it is.
No, he wouldn't have played trumpet on that. I
Yeah.
don't think.
Then there are two saxophonists who.
Ask Calvin, though.
Yes,
make sure you ask Calvin because maybe that was him on trumpet.
Okay, you're the first teacher.
Yeah,
I'm going to graduate to the second teacher.
Tell Calvin to clear that up for you.
I'm going to try to get this cleared up by the time.
Phineas Newborn was a busy guy.
Okay. Then there's so the two saxophonists and Calvin Newborn playing guitar and handling all the male singing except for the chorus numbers, where everybody sang, obviously. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't. I didn't hear any flute on this. Would he have doubled a saxophone? He might have asked Calvin.
No, he wouldn't have doubled a saxophone. It would be flute or trombone.
Okay, trombone possibly. Okay. Then the father, Phineas Newborn Sr. on drums.
Mm-hmm.
And you would say that we at the very least heard Phineas Newborn Jr. play two instruments, piano and vibes, during the course of that.
And saxophone.
Oh, you heard Phineas play saxophone.
Yeah.
You couldn't pick out which one it was, though.
No.
Was there a tenor solo on Mood Indigo? No.
No.
And
it's in there somewhere. Make Calvin identify those places where he's playing saxophone.
When you hear tomorrow, right around this time, this very same performance, when the Phineas Newborn Jr. tenor solo comes in, write down which number it is, or at least where it's in between, like if it's near Crimea River or whatever, so I can get that for the broadcast, because I may not get to Calvin till Wednesday, the last day of the festival. Just the tenor solo, and then I'll go on to the next teacher. Yeah. But I'm telling you, there's...
Only thing, tomorrow this time I'll be rehearsing for a recording.
Okay, you got it on tape, actually.
Okay.
I made you got it.
Now I can listen to it.
Yeah, you got it on
I'll let you know.
Yeah, just because that's important to our study of, it's not on the blues number, so, and that's the unidentified one.
Well, I'll re-listen, see.
Okay.
I'll re-listen, because these things I had never heard.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting here trying to spin back 30 years or more.
Okay.
Maybe 40.
It's closer to 40 than it is to 30.
That's right.
It's a lot. And you would say this is post-Army or pre-Army?
This is pre-Army.
So,
wait a minute, let me be sure now. This may be pre-Army. I'm going to have to think about that.
The symphony, the last conversation with Phineas Newborn Jr. about the symphony, about you guys and B.B. King, and then anything else you'd like to say. 3 things from Jamil Nasser, bassist and lifelong friend of Phineas Newborn Jr. And then we'll play one more record and the interview will be over. If that's all right with you, Mr.
Yeah, that's
Nasser.
fine with me. Actually, Phil, something came to my mind that was so comical to Phineas and I when we first came to New York. Earl Garner had never heard Phineas. And Earl Garner and Basie were working the,
Basin Street East?
Basin Street. No, the original Basin Street.
Basin Street.
They were working the Basin Street. So Phineas and I went down to hear Earl Garner and Basie. So Basie, being mischievous, he looked and saw Phineas. He said, "Look, go up and do my next set for me. I'm just sending you in the rhythm section up." And so what they did is the whole Basie band got them a spot where they could watch Earl, because they knew Earl was totally in the dark about Phineas. So Phineas went up and he played that piano, man. He's just raking keys off. And Basie and them was sitting in a position where they could watch Earl, and they could tell it, boy, this was really tearing him up, for this guy to come out of the blue like that. So now, after Phineas finished playing, it was pandemonium in the place. So now they hunting each other. What's he gonna do now? So Earl went to the bar. He said, "Give me a double," and he threw that down. Then he turned toward the band. He said, "Give me another double." He threw that down. He walked about 5 paces and he came back. He said, "Give me one more." And he threw that down. And he walked up to the piano. The whole place was quiet as it could be. So Bass is looking like, what's he gonna do? We got him, And all I remember is the tempo. Earl sit down at the piano and he said, boom, boom, right there. And by the time Earl finished, me, Phineas, Basie, the waiters and waitress, the audience, everybody in the place was dancing.
All right.
So the lessons we learned from that, I told Phineas, I said, gee, what an original, it's all about who plays last, isn't it? And we had a big, big laugh out of that. As a matter of fact, we used to bring that up to each other a lot. And it was one of those highlights, you know, in our lives where he had played so much piano that it didn't seem there was anything else left to do. But Earl sit down and went into his ballpark. And not only did he get the audience and everybody else, he got me, Phineas, Basie, everybody, you know, involved in what he was doing, you know. And so we had a lot of laughs about that.